of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. I want to take a look today at one of the most recognizable songs of all time. Came out in 1970 on the last released Beatles album, Let It Be, written by Paul. And we're going to look at mostly just a campfire version of it. It's really easy. We're going to throw in a few little fills, these little descending bass parts that fill it out. And that's about it. We'll look at this. The little piano thing that happens in there. And it really is just a matter of keeping a simple strum going and running through some chords. You really do want to play some of the Fs as bars, some of the Fs as little Fs, and it'll be fine, especially the ones that happen in the closing little interlude. So, but really interesting things about this song. First of all, John Lennon hated it. He accused it of being religious, and Paul was talking about his mother, Mary. Now, both Paul and John lost their mothers as teenagers, and so had the emotional baggage that goes along with something like that. And so Paul, it seems like he refers to his mother in quite a few songs, as does John refer to his mother in quite a few songs. And we have some great songs because of that. Now, it was interesting, in 1969 when they recorded this, they were trying to make an album. They had just done a bunch of albums that were pretty heavily produced. The White Album and songs from like Magical Mystery Tour and Sgt. Pepper and all that kind of stuff. And they were not real happy with the directions things were going, and they weren't getting along very well. They were in financial problems. There were all sorts of things going on. And so they thought that the best thing to do, not really sure whose idea this was, but they wanted to get back to their roots and write some rock and roll songs and just go in the studio and do it with the four of them playing, not relying on orchestras and horns and all the other kind of stuff that they had been doing, all the fancy effects. So they locked themselves up in January of 1969, starting at Twickenham Film Studios, hoping to shoot a movie of how this whole thing was going to come out. And the ultimate plan was for the movie, which was going to be called Get Back, and hence the whole getting back to the way they used to do things in their rock and roll days. But the sessions started off in the film studio and did not go well, because they spent about 2 weeks trying to create the creative atmosphere was just not there on this bare sound stage with none of their stuff around and things. So for 2 weeks they just kind of wasted time, and some of the outtakes from there are absolutely terrible. Matter of fact, if you need to hear some of them, you need to check out this, the Get Back Journals. Well, or something like it. There are all kinds of versions of this around. This came in a movie box. It was 8 CDs and very difficult to find. Nice collector's item nowadays. Of course, this is where you find most of their stuff now, on the Let It Be album. So, anyway, so for 2 weeks, things were not going well. Then they decided to move back into the Apple studios, where things were a little bit better. We can play Let It Be pretty much as a campfire song, just using 4 chords, and not even throwing anything fancy. We need a C, a G, an A minor, and an F. Usually in that order. Sometimes it skips the A minor. That's about the 2 things that happen in the song. And so a nice strum for this, though, that will kind of imitate what was going on with the piano, is strumming down on the first beat with as many notes as you can get for the chord. If it's a 5-string chord, try to just get 5 strings. And then coming in with a bass note on the second beat, because the way Paul played this on the piano was pretty much hitting the chord with his right hand on the first beat and adding bass notes in on the second. Sometimes he played the bass notes on the first too. But it definitely has this feel of bom, 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 bom. So this is a kind of variation on a strum that I called, or a pattern that I call the ballad pattern. The ballad pattern uses just a down on beat 1 and a rest on beat 2, so that beat 1 is very strong. If I just played through the chord progression with the straight ballad pattern, it'd be down, rest, down, down, up. And you've got to remember too to let go of the chord on that up. I want to talk a little bit about lead playing. Not exactly how George played the lead in Let It Be, but this is a great chord progression to experiment with using a very simple version of the pentatonic scale. And what is going on here is that then there are three easily accessible versions, or easy to find versions of this song. And if you want to hear the way they recorded it, or the way George played this, was every time they played it or recorded it, he just played the lead differently. And so when they had the main part of it mixed the way they wanted, they had a bunch of different leads that George had played, and they just listened to them and decided which ones they wanted to put in there. So there are three easy to find ones. The one on the Let It Be album has, again, all the songs they're virtually identical with different leads. The Let It Be album has one. The song was also released as a single that had a different lead than the one on Let It Be, and that version shows up on the Past Masters album. Then on Beatles Anthology 3, they threw in another one that had another completely different lead. And basically, the backing tracks to all of these are from the same recording. But all George would do in this is mess around with notes out of the C pentatonic scale. And a very simple way of playing that is starting on C on the 5th string, 3rd fret, with your first finger. And this is one of the first scale patterns that people learn to just work on improvising leads to. Our pentatonic pattern has 3 notes at the beginning of the scale. They'd be C, D, and E. Then it skips F. The 4th note of the scale is not involved in the pentatonic scale, and then it has the 5th and 6th notes of the scale. So on the guitar, this is a very simple pattern, because I would play C with my first finger, D with my 3rd, and then I'd slide it up to E. I might hit it, but in either case, I'm going to play 3 notes on the 5th string at the 3rd fret, 5th fret, and 7th fret. Skipping the 4th note of the scale takes me to the 5th fret of the 4th string for a G, and the 7th fret for an A. So my 1st and 3rd fingers just played 2 notes on the 5th string, 2 notes on the 4th string, and then they're going to play 2 notes on the 3rd string. Well, I hope there was something for everybody in this lesson on Let It Be, because if you're a beginning guitar player, you can learn to strum those chords with just a simple ballad strum, and you could use the little F if you're not quite up to bar chords, so that would be no problem, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to put in any of the fills. It could be a level, I guess I gotta call it level 2, because even that little F is a little tough. But if you can throw in the bigger F, it'll sound much better. You'll get a lot fuller sound. And then if you can start throwing in some of the fills, now we get this up. Now we're talking about a song moving it up into the level 4 or 5 range, because we just got this little passing on the F, and we got to use maybe a level 6 if we're talking about using your thumb for those low Fs. And don't forget, that's completely optional. The chord will sound fine if I did this, using just the little F major 7 to the F6.